Hey Vineet. Hi Vineet, are we audible? In case you're speaking, you're on mute.
Hi, hi. Sorry, just having some connection issues.
No worries.
How are you guys doing?
Good, good, all good. Thanks for coming.
No, no, no. Pleasure. Yeah, thanks for organizing this.
No, no, our pleasure.
I mean, it's great to see you again.
Hey, Sam. Back to our favorite mountain.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the last time I saw you was jumping onto a helicopter flying under this mountain.
Uh, you guys are looking like you're wearing military fatigues or something,
No, no.
dressed for combat.
We're just going to give it another couple of minutes and wait for some people to log on before we kick off the call.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Hi, Shrikant. Hi, Saraj.
Hi
Yeah.
everyone, hi Sam.
Hi Sam. Hi Sauraj. Hi everyone. And Ayush.
Hey Shrikant sir. We'll just give it like 5 minutes, and I think by 12:35, maybe a couple minutes after that, based on how many people have joined in by then, we can kick it off.
Sure.
Ayush is supposed to have like some dramatic music playing, right, as a precursor to the call, especially since it's Ama Dablam we're talking about, that classic
Let me
Titanic kind of
let
score.
me quickly add drum roll to the start of the presentation. So for the first minute, there'll only be a drum roll.
Amazing. Hi, Natasha. Great to see that the house is already decorated for Christmas. Fabulous. The house is looking really nice.
Hey Ojas.
Oh, I didn't realize I was on mute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were enjoying the expressions.
I was like, okay, yeah.
Hi, Ojas. Welcome to the call.
Yeah, hi Samir. Hi Ayush.
Hello.
We we're gonna give this a couple of more minutes before we kick off the session, and waiting for Ayush to come up with some great background score for the Ama Dablam Expedition. Hi, Deepak.
Hi.
Deepak, how's the recovery coming post knee surgery?
Good, good. I'm walking after 2 weeks without crutches, so looks good. So far, so good.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Absolutely fantastic. Heartiest congratulations. Glad you took the plunge to get it done. Otherwise, it's always there at the back of your mind whether to do it or not to do it.
Yeah, correct.
So, will be all set for Elbrus 2026?
Next something else actually again.
Good, good. Excellent. Very good. We can go and do a quick jump up Kinabalu, which is closer towards home for you, no? So, folks, just to give you a background, Deepak and we did Elbrus in 2025. And soon after that, he realized that he's got a busted knee and was on two minds as to whether to have a surgery or not to have a surgery. And I think for the sake of pursuing greater heights on more mountains, he took the plunge and got the knee surgery done and
Mm,
is already walking post surgery. So fantastic. Really,
mm,
really amazing.
yeah. And most likely, meniscus was already torn when we were climbing on Elbrus, which we didn't
That's
know.
true. Yeah, that's true. Chances are that you'd already done some damage before the
Yeah,
climb or on the expedition itself.
correct.
Okay, I think we can start. Ayush, you never played the drum roll, yeah, the music. No,
I'm
I'm just
having
joking.
I'm having
Folks,
technical difficulties as well.
okay, great. Very, very good afternoon and welcome to a session recommended strongly by Natasha. So thank you, Natasha, for pushing us to take this step in the right direction. It's an exciting um, it's exciting for us to talk about mountains and to create it on this format. I think it's even more structured. And the popular vote was to talk about Ama Dablam, which is my favorite mountain. I love this mountain. It terrifies me. It inspires me, and it's one of those mountains which, if ever you entered the Khumbu Valley, the Everest Valley, you cannot help but admire how beautiful this mountain is from every particular angle. So, on that note, here's kicking off a small little introduction to Ama Dablam as a climbing mountain. So just to give you a background, just for context, and I love mentioning this story, but Everest was first climbed in 1953. People who have been fascinated with climbing Everest all the way from 1920, 21, George Mallory being one of the pioneers on this particular expedition. And interestingly, Ama Dablam is one of the few mountains in the Himalayas which is not as popular, but once you see it, you can't help but falling completely in love with this mountain. The name itself, Ama Dablam, comes from a Sherpa interpretation of Ama being mother, which, if you look at the mountain, it literally looks like a mother with her arms wide open, about to give you a nice big hug. And Dablam represents the hanging glacier right under the neck of the mountain, which kind of resembles this double pendant pearl necklace that Sherpa women wear. They keep pictures of their loved ones inside that pendant. They keep pictures of gods, and that's how the name comes about, Ama Dablam. And in fact, as you start climbing towards the Thukla Pass, as you approach Labuche on your way up to the Everest Glacier, the face and the angle of the mountain changes completely, and it actually starts resembling the Matterhorn, and is therefore popularly referred to as the Matterhorn of the Himalayas. It was first climbed in 1961. Um, Edmund Hillary, in fact, was terrified of this mountain. And after climbing Everest, while walking back down, looked at Ama Dablam and said, "Listen, nobody's going to climb this mountain." But interestingly, in 1961, he went back and led a team of climbers to actually end up climbing this mountain. The first summit, it's interesting because the first summit was done by Alfred Gregory, Mike Ward, Barry Bishop, and that expedition was kind of a landmark expedition because at that time suddenly the Western world got enamored with the story of the Himalayas, and a lot of the expedition was not only spent in climbing Ama Dablam, but was also a search expedition to establish the credentials of whether the Yeti, the abominable snowman, actually existed in the Himalayas or not. So it's quite interesting. Very few people know that. Also, as I mentioned, it's not one of the most popular mountains to climb. And so the total number of people that have climbed it in the world, I think, would be probably about under 500 climbers. And from India, I think the number of people that have climbed it are only about 43 or 44 people. It's gotten popular over the last couple of years, especially because I think mountaineering has evolved. It has become a lot more spectator of sorts, where you have drones, you have fantastic Insta 360 cameras that give you a great perspective of what a mountaineer goes through. But historically, climbing mountains was literally about the person going and climbing the mountain. And there's very little camera equipment that you could use to capture that experience and share it with other people. So I think post-COVID, with documentaries like 14 Peaks, Sherpa, I think the interest in mountaineering has certainly picked up to a large extent. And Ama Dablam is a mountain which totally is worth coveting. So more about the mountain. Ayush, if you move to the next slide, please. So dissecting this expedition from a mountaineering perspective, the height that we have to aim for is 6,812 meters. So a lot of people in this group have already tagged their first 5,000 and 6,000 meter peak. But what makes Ama Dablam uniquely different is the technical aspect of this mountain. You need to have rock climbing skills, snow climbing skills, ice climbing skills, lots of jumaring, lots of rappelling. The route that you take to Ama Dablam follows the same route as the Everest base camp trek. So you start off at Kathmandu, you fly into Lukla, and then you start trekking up. You slowly make your way to Namche Bazaar and continue your journey to Tengbuche. And post Tengbuche, you have the village of Pangbuche, and it's from Pangbuche that most people end up either going and acclimatizing at Dingbuche or directly from Pangbuche heading up towards the base camp of Ama Dablam. Ayush, if you go to the previous slide, it'll give people a really good route perspective of what the way is. So the Ama Dablam base camp, in my opinion, out of all the mountains that I've climbed, is by far one of the most beautiful base camps ever. It's flat, it's got that typical Himalayan grass kind of covering. It has a little stream that cuts through the base camp, and they even have a volleyball court on Ama Dablam base camp as well. It is from Ama Dablam base camp that we slowly have make our way along the southwest ridge of Ama Dablam, and that's when it becomes really technical. You have Camp 1 at 5,800 meters, Camp 2 at 6,100 meters, and Camp 2 of Ama Dablam is this iconic picture that we'll show you later on. There's also a Camp 3 of Ama Dablam, but not too many people use it because on the 13th of November in 2006, there was this really bad avalanche that took place where a part of the hanging glacier, about 20-25 tons of ice, broke off and fell straight onto Camp 3. And 6 climbers were crushed instantly, and a lot of people were injured. So since then, now it's been about 19 to 20 years, Camp 3 is used very rarely. From a safety perspective, most expeditions try pushing all the way from Camp 2 to the summit. And I know you're looking at the elevation of 6,100 meters and going up to 6,800 meters, and that's what? 700 meters, that's nothing. For some of you who've done Kangyatse, where you've climbed 1,100, 1,200 meters in one night. Similarly, with Island Peak, you're thinking it's a piece of cake. But a lot of this height gain from Camp 2 to the summit is on vertical faces. So there's a lot of technical skills required, a lot of upper body, a lot of technique. You're pretty much not stepping, but pulling yourself physically up. So it can get pretty exhausting. It's quite intense. I remember when Suraj and I were climbing Ama Dablam, I mean, the constant thought was, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. It is just one of those mountains which is just so intimidating as an experience. Um, Let me show you some pictures of base camp. This is what base camp looks like. It's relatively flat, and before every mountain, as you can see, you have teams that are spaced out quite nicely. For some of you who've trekked up to Everest base camp, where you have tents literally balancing on blocks of ice and rock and all that. Over here, it's really great. It's a beautiful base camp. And in fact, you even have a couple of lodges about 25, 30 minutes away from where the tents are pitched. So we have quite a few people who end up trekking just to trek up to the Ama Dablam base camp over there, or spend a night in a tea house and then head back down or continue their journey to the Everest base camp of the Three Passes trek. Before the expedition, of course, you end up trying to make sure that you acclimatize extremely well. So unlike Everest, where you have multiple rotations, even though it's 6,800 meters, we try making sure that we build in at least one rotation where we go from base camp, go up to camp one, spend a night, climb up to camp two, just tag it, leave some equipment, and come all the way back down to base camp. Um, the series of pictures that we're going to show you over here will represent not the rotation, but the direct push towards the summit. And so before we leave from the base camp, when you're ready to climb the mountains, as is normal with Sherpa culture, we do a small little puja ceremony and ask for blessings from the mountain gods to protect us and give us safety. Not so much for the summit, but just to keep us alive, especially on a mountain like Ama Dablam. As we move forward from base camp, you have the opportunity of going up to camp one. Interestingly, again, not too many people talk about it, but between base camp and camp one, there's an interim camp where some climbers use this. The approach up to this interim camp is very gradual. So from base camp to camp one, it takes about, I would say, an average about 6 hours. That's a good estimate. And the interim camp is about 3 hours. So some people have different uh, strategies as far as rotations are concerned, as far as acclimatization is concerned. And so the interim camp between base camp and camp one becomes a great stop for you to have your lunch and take a break. It becomes a very clear landmark on the way up to camp one. Above this interim camp is when it gets a little bit more tricky. So, Camp 1 is located on this ridge of the southwestern route. It's pretty precarious, as you can see. Your tents are literally perched on the edge, and well, the views are great, and you get a fantastic perspective of what the entire Khumbu Valley looks like from a bird's eye perspective. But after spending overnight over here, you slowly move up onwards, and from camp one to camp two, it gets really tricky. So this is a really nice video of our tents perched on the ridge, and as you can see, there's an overhang on one side and a drop on the other side, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, I don't know what's going to kill me first, the drop or the rock on top of me." But this camp is good because it kind of prepares you slowly and steadily for the next camp that you have as well. This is a great small video snippet of Suraj and Rahul Oak. I'm not too sure whether he's on the call, but we ended up climbing Ama Dablam together in 2022.
Is the audio coming
So
through?
we are at Camp 1 of Ama Dablam. Like, I don't know why it's called Camp 1 because there is no camp. It's just a collection of tents hanging off a cliff. This is 5,800 meters. We started from 4,600 meters today. So it was a solid gain of 1,200 meters, which is quite high. But we made it in about 6 to 7 hours. We are spending some time outside, resting, acclimatizing, and you can see the peak of Ama Dablam. The team is doing well, and yeah, we hope to make it to the summit soon. Thank you.
And I have enjoyed the climb till Camp 1 very, very much. You can see back there Camp 2, the yellow tower. It's all a dream come true. It's really nice getting up here, chilling out a bit, getting to drink something, hydrating a bit. We'll spend the night and we'll go down back.
Yeah, as you can see, we choose to be in these really weird places. So everything is great when you're on the mountain. Hey, Rahul. So great to see Rahul as well.
I couldn't
Rahul,
avoid
I'm sure
coming
you.
in into this fantastic session, and it is good to see
Rahul, I'm
you
sure you
here.
forgot you gave that Oscar-winning speech also sitting at Camp 1.
Thanks. I mute myself.
Okay, so the progression from Camp 1 to Camp 2 is when it gets really exciting and challenging. Um, you can say that, hey, you get great pictures, but honestly, it's so terrifying that you hardly get a chance to pull out your camera and actually take some pictures. Fortunately, you need to make sure that you always have Rahul Oak with you, because he's the only brave one who has the courage to pull out a camera and take pictures and say, "Arey yaar, let's take one more nice picture, yaar, mast lagega." But from that perspective, as you start progressing from camp 1 to camp 2, it's very important to be cognizant of the fact that every single step, uh, you have to be 120% committed, because it is that dangerous. You're constantly fixed on ropes and wires, and you're constantly like just hanging off 1,000 meters vertical drop. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how to describe how scary this climb looks like. So there are certain sections like this where the rope literally is around a rock face, and you don't have a place to put your foot. So what you have to do is you have to hold on to the rope and push your body against the rope. So you're literally pushing your body flat against the rock face, and below you is about a 1500, 1600 meter vertical drop. So especially when you have to change anchors at the anchor changing spots, you have to just hope that you're not going to slip, or you're not going to have a bit of a stumble, or your hands are not too cold where you fumble on your carabiners. But crossing the section is super fun. It challenges you as a climber, as a mountaineer, and it really gives you the impression of what you're signed up for, because as you keep going higher up, remember, you're going to be doing a lot of this climbing in the dark. So the climb up to camp 1 and camp 2 definitely prepares you for every step that's going to be coming forward. You come across some very typical features, and the yellow tower is a very distinct feature. But what's iconic is literally this picture. As you can see, this is a picture of Camp 2. This, of course, is a stock image of Camp 2, because there's no way we had the kind of camera equipment to capture this visual. But just to give you a perspective, the next slide, we actually have pictures of our own camp. And our camp looks as scary, if not more. So the picture on the extreme left is the tents perched with the Ama Dablam above us. The picture in the center with the red circle drawn, that was our tent on the shoulder of Camp 2. And the third picture is a closer image of what our tent looks like. I mean, there's literally no space. When you come out of the tent, even to step out, you have to be fixed on a rope. Um, Even to drink water, you can't do it alone. You need somebody's help to help you with your bottles and stuff like that. It truly is a test of every expedition that you've ever done. I mean, Suraj and I have done Everest and attempted it several times, but by far we still look at Ama Dablam as the toughest, most challenging peak that we've ever done. From Camp 2, you move slowly and steadily. We, in fact, left Camp 2 in the night at about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the night, and started making our way from Camp 2 to what is the Camp 3. And there's one feature that's called the Great Tower. And most of this climb is done in the dark, thank God, because if you could actually see the kind of drops that were there on your left and right, you may just change your mind as to whether you want to actually complete this expedition or not. Um, we don't have too many pictures of the climb from Camp 2 to Camp 3. But of course, we only were brave enough to take out our cameras on the one spot which was flat, which is actually the summit. And that's the great thing about Ama Dablam. Ama Dablam, the summit has enough room to land a helicopter on. But unfortunately, it's the only place which is flat throughout the entire expedition. This is a small little video of Suraj just after we came from the summit back down to Camp 2.
We've just come back from successfully climbing Ama Dablam. I don't think I have ever felt so tired in my life. But the good thing is we made it. Made it back to Camp 2 by about 5:30 in the evening. The culprit is that guy there. We started at, I think, 11 p.m. 11:20 p.m. 11:20 p.m. and got back to Camp 2 by about 5:30 the next day. So I had a really long push, a very, very difficult mountain. I think, a lot of times people used to ask me what is the toughest thing you've done, and I used to tell them it's yet to come. But I think I have the answer now. Definitely Ama Dablam, at least for some time to go. And yeah, as you can see, we both are completely rogered. So yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so that was a censored video. The uncensored one we will play later. But having said that, if you look at the kind of equipment that we are wearing on Ama Dablam, helmet, of course, absolutely compulsory because of rockfall. You have to have um, your torch that can be placed on your helmet because a lot of the climbing happens in the dark. And if you notice, all three of us are wearing down suits because Ama Dablam as a mountain is very exposed, right, from all sections. We climb the southwest ridge, and the wind factor on Ama Dablam can be quite precarious. So, though it's a 6,800-meter mountain, we strongly recommend down suits because you do need to be prepared for the worst. The winds can pick up, you're completely exposed, and the last thing you want to do is be caught unprepared. Um, Both Rahul and Sauraj were wearing their 8,000 millet boots. I ended up wearing La Sportiva 6,000-meter boots, which I regret because my toes started freezing. Also, the most important thing is that when you're wearing a down suit, you need to have very good gaiters to go over it. Otherwise, chances are your crampons are going to damage your down suit. By the time I came down from Ama Dablam, there was like just a stream of feathers erupting from various stairs and damages on my down suit. So it was quite funny. I had tape that was taping me everywhere. Um, the most important thing to remember about Ama Dablam is that it should never be attempted as an individual. I definitely think that if it wasn't for the team that we had at that point in time, Rahul, Ziva, Sauraj, and me, and of course the Sherpas who have done Ama Dablam multiple times, there's no way we would have been able to reach the top. I think Ama Dablam is a very good example of making sure that if you're ever thinking of climbing a mountain, you need to build a very strong team around you. The hero in this entire expedition was the gentleman in the green jacket. That's Lakpa Sherpa. I've had the opportunity of climbing with Lakpa Sherpa on several mountains. And not only is he a legend from the Makalu Valley, he has climbed Ama Dablam, I think, some 20, 25 times, to say the least. So yeah, it was a really great experience. We ended up climbing Ama Dablam in 2022 of October, and I still talk about it so actively that I can't believe it's already been 2.5 years since we climbed Ama Dablam. It's very difficult to get a perspective of what the climbing route is, but there's some spotlights that you need to know before thinking about ever climbing Ama Dablam or ever considering it. First and foremost, I think even though some people have started referring to Ama Dablam as a trekking peak, it is not a trekking peak. You do need to have a rotation plan of Camp 1, Camp 2 before you go back and climb for the summit. The other factor is that Ama Dablam is so technical that I would say that you need to have at least 4 or 5 6,000-meter peaks under your belt to build up the kind of technical experience to be able to attempt doing it. Also, interestingly, if you've climbed Ama Dablam, then the Nepal government actually recognizes it as an official qualification to attempt an 8,000-meter peak. So you don't necessarily need to do a 7,000-meter peak to continue. Your technical skills have to be superb. Your jumaring, rappelling, anchor transitions, managing fixed ropes. I think especially on Ama Dablam, where there's so many ropes from previous expeditions, you need to be able to recognize which rope to clip on. It is critical that you're self-sufficient. I mean, if you're expecting a Sherpa to be there to help you out, the Sherpa is going to be there just to make sure to help you in case something goes wrong. but it's super important for you to be able to be self-sufficient because a couple of the anchors are so precarious that he doesn't have the ability to come around you to change the anchor for you, for example. So it's important that you are as comfortable being able to transition between anchor points. There's some very distinct features that you will overcome. The yellow tower, the mushroom ridge, the serac of above Camp 3, which you go around. These are just some of the visuals that can give you a perspective, but it still doesn't do justice to actually being on the mountain. In fact, we're going to show you a video from 8K, which we'll use for educational purposes, which will help give you a better perspective of how precarious this stage is. So, as you consider climbing this mountain, the biggest challenge that most people have to be careful of is just this. This is what Camp 3 looks like. In fact, you'll have one or two brave people who put up the tent, but just above that, you have this Dablam, the Serac, the hanging glacier, which, as I mentioned earlier in 2006, was responsible for that massive avalanche that crushed climbers at Camp 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is before we open up the forum for questions, we're going to show you this really cool video of what the Ama Dablam Expedition looks like, because in this particular video, they've been able to gain some really great drone footage. And Ayush, if you can pull that up, that'll be really great.
Yeah.
So, when you see the perspective from a drone camera, I think it gives you the depth and height that you need to gain while doing this.
And just
So
give
the
you
video that we're going to be showing you is actually a video that's been shot during an expedition team run by a company called 8K. And out of all the videos, I think it's one of the most fabulous videos. We will not claim any credit for it. In fact, we will share the link of this video so that you can see it later on. But the features that they show on the video is fabulous, and I'd love to take you through it and talk you through it so you get a sense of how big this mountain is and how scary this mountain is. Okay, so you start off your expedition, as I mentioned, in early hours of the morning, and this is a departure from base camp all the way towards Camp 1. This is exactly how the route looks like, right? You see base camp on your left side, and as you slowly progress towards Camp 1, you get a chance to see what it looks like. I think there's a little bit of a lag on the video, but that's more because of the internet. I don't know whether it's at my end or at everybody's end, but
So yeah, just change the quality so that people can. Let me 1 second. Just give me a second.
sure, no problem. Take your time, Ash.
Visible now?
Okay, so as you're much better. So as you're approaching Camp 1, you see this huge moraine, right? All these broken rocks upon which Camp 1 is placed precariously on, and they're very unstable. So the last approach to Camp 1 literally requires you to pull yourself up by a rope. There's no water source over here, so teams need to pre-prep before the expedition starts. Keep playing ice, don't worry about it. So teams need to pre-prep by making sure that they have like a water barrel, which they literally have a team that sets up water over there. Or climbers need to bring water for themselves as well. A very uncomfortable night, but it's very important to make sure that you are self-sufficient. So a good quality sleeping bag. We ended up sleeping in our down suits as well. And the bottom is very rocky, so you need to make sure that you have at least one, if not two, sleeping mats to sleep on. The next day, early in the morning, you start from Camp 1 and move to Camp 2. And this is where it starts getting very technical. Again, the feature is very exposed. You can't wear your down suit over here because you'll end up melting. The climb up the yellow tower is what you can see right now on your screens. And doing this with climbing boots is a nightmare because the sections are very, very vertical. very steep, and of course, very exposed. So every single step, you have to be 120% sure of it before you continue. This is a great drone video of what it looks like to give you a perspective. Rappelling down is fun, but still scary. But jumaring up can get really, really tough. At this elevation, rescues can only be done by helicopters. Fortunately, because it's still under 7,000 meters, a helicopter can get you, but they can only do it through a long line rescue. This is a great drone video of what Camp 2 looks like. It's very exposed. Um, the joke is that at Camp 2, you're so scared that you don't end up pooping anywhere around. And I was scared shitless, as Ayush puts it. But yeah, unfortunately, um, there's not very much place to go and poop, and so not too many people will call it out. But yeah, Camp 2, unfortunately, is a smelly camp. Not all climbers are very good at following the leave no trace policy. From Camp 2, you slowly start making your way up to Camp 3. We did this climb in the night, but these guys ended up going up and setting up a Camp 3 also. So you get a chance to see what the ridge actually looks like. This is the Grey Tower that they're climbing. So not only the Yellow Tower, but the Grey Tower is also very distinct as a feature. And not too many people actually talk about it. Very exposed and a mix of snow and ice. But what becomes really tough is trying to walk on the rocks with your crampons because you can't stop in between and keep switching back and forth. And so trying to get a purchase on rock and then switch to ice can be very, very scary. If you're getting a bit of a lag on the video, don't worry too much about it. We will share the link with you so that you will have a chance to see it properly on HD on your phones later on. The Mushroom Ridge is one of the most exposed features of the climb because you have a drop on both sides, left and right, and you suddenly switch from snow to rock, and the width is nothing more than 2.5 feet. Also, this part of the climb you end up doing in your down suits. You do it in the night, it's crazy, but during the day, this is the kind of views that you get to see. So, as I said, it's very, very, very exposed. I think Ama Dablam as a mountain by far is up among the peaks which distinguishes you as a good climber or not. I think I personally feel that we were very lucky when we climbed Ama Dablam. For me, it's a dream to be able to go back. We were able to facilitate an Ama Dablam expedition in 2025 and had the oldest woman from Israel and the only woman from Israel, Masha, who was able to summit. And we're very excited that in 2026 we should be leading another expedition to Ama Dablam. As I mentioned earlier, this team was actually camping at Camp 3. They started for the summit at about 1 o'clock and slowly and steadily made their way from Camp 3 up the face below the Dablam Glacier. And this part is not as dangerous, but you have this thought at the back of your mind that in 2006, that glacier broke off and fell on climbers. So even though it's technically not the toughest part of this climb, it definitely is scary because every single step that's constantly there in your mind thinking, please don't break, don't follow me. So yeah, that's what Ama Dablam is all about. And I think we'll be happy to open up the forum to questions that you guys may have.
Natasha, in case you're speaking, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was eating something, but yeah, I also wanted to ask something. So basically, it looks like a very intimidating mountain for sure. but very interesting. I mean, how did this mountain change? How did this experience change your relationship with the mountains? I would like to know. Also, considering there would be points where your instincts and experience and fear, everything would converge together, right? And was there a time when what you felt, I mean, the judgment, or you felt something and you realized, yeah, this is what I had to do or needed to do?
Um, that's a really tough question. No, I think Ama Dablam became a very distinct turning point uh, where the idea of being able to facilitate expeditions to help groom people to aspire to climb a mountain like Ama Dablam started taking shape, where we were like, okay, listen, there may be a lot of people who want to just go climb a mountain and come back, and we can put all the ground logistics in place and make sure that person has one, two, three, four Sherpas. But what if you're able to get people, technically qualified, build up that kind of experience, and allow them to be able to even aspire to climb a mountain like Ama Dablam? And I think from that perspective, when Suraj, Rahul, Ziba, and I were attempting to climb Ama Dablam, I think we were very candid in when talking about our limitations while dealing with this mountain, right? And even now, I still feel that I was lucky to be able to reach the summit, but I would love to be able to train technically to be a better climber, to truly be able to appreciate going back to Ama Dablam and climbing it uh, confidently and have fun in the process. So yeah, I think that's how Ama Dablam definitely changed me. I thought I was a climber or a mountaineer until I went and climbed Ama Dablam, and I was like, okay, I've got a lot to learn from it. And that's also why I'm very passionate about the winter climbing workshop that we do, because it gives me an opportunity to learn whatever the little skills I've learned over the years and share that with people as well, and makes them more self-sufficient. I think it's very important to develop that level of self-sufficiency on the mountain, because when you're hanging off a rope for your life, you can't blame the Sherpa to not be able to help you. I think it's important to be able to help yourself at that point in time. So yeah, that made a huge difference to me as far as climbing Ama Dablam is concerned. And as far as expedition on Ama Dablam, we've had such interesting expeditions before on Everest, where we went back multiple times to attempt it again. The mountains like Stockangri, Island Peak, where we've had tough situations. Kangyatse, oh my God, I can't explain Kangyatse how many times we've had to turn back from that mountain because of weather. But Ama Dablam went so smoothly that it did seem real. We went there budgeting for about 25 days to spend on the mountain. And I think we finished the expedition in about 10 days or 11 days. So it was one of those experiences that went off so smoothly that it was too perfect to be real. So yeah, I think even now when Suraj and I think back on Ama Dablam, we're like, I think every time we trek on the Everest base camp and look up at Ama Dablam, we're like, wow, I can't believe we did that. So yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I just can't get over the Camp 2 drop. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Have there been many fatalities on this mountain? I mean, forget the ice falling on climbers, but have people slipped and fallen, or deaths while climbing?
Yes, Vineet. Honestly, Ahmedabad is the kind of mountain which every season claims a couple of lives. In fact, when we were attempting to climb Ahmedabad, we were there very early in the season, and one of the Sherpas, I think Tashi Dorji Sherpa, who was part of the route fixing team. They managed to reach the top. They fixed the rope, and on the way down, unfortunately, slipped. Even though he was on an anchor point, but the face was so vertical that by the time he fell to the next anchor, he fell with so much of force that he ended up getting crushed. And so Amadharmam is the kind of mountain which every season there is a fatality on it, and therefore when somebody is attempting to climb Muhammad Ablam, they have to be very, very confident in their abilities or in the team's abilities that is taking them. I would not put it in the category of chal, let's just go and climb it and see what happens kind of thing, right? You have to be mentally prepared to take a call to turn back at any point in time. So it's a kind of mountain where just being part of the expedition is such a thrill and an experience that if you reach the summit, it's a bonus. But just the expedition itself gives you a lot of opportunity for learning.
Right. And also, just one add-on question. Is there any equipment which sort of, something like the blinkers that horses wear, can you narrow your view and, get by? Is it a good idea so that you're not able to look right or left and you can just focus on the ground below you?
Um, no, I don't think there's an equipment specifically for that. And it's also important, I think, to be aware of the periphery to, I mean, I think, especially while climbing Ama Dablam, um to have that kind of exposure means that you're able to concentrate your steps and control your movement to such an extent that every step is precision. So, unfortunately, no, there are no blinkers that have been used for Ama Dablam because, from a safety perspective, will be a problem. If there's a rock fall on the side or there's a ice drop on the other side and you don't see it coming, then you're putting yourself at risk. So to be able to have that peripheral vision is also important, but not to let it get to you, I think is important. It's like your experience, when you were climbing Island Peak, when we reached the top and you had to jumar yourself, along that rock face which had a bit of a zig and a zag, and you had to go over. So you did it, and despite you being over 6 feet and that being a very very narrow ledge, uh, I think that was also important because even while coming down, you needed to know who were the climbers that were on your left and right, and you didn't want to step on them as well. So yeah, I think from a safety perspective, any form of restriction of vision kind of puts you at risk.
Sure, thanks.
My pleasure. Okay, any other questions? Ayush, do you have any questions? Any Ama Dablam related questions that you always wanted to ask?
Yeah, you mentioned that it went off quite smoothly and you were back in about 10, 11 days in comparison to the 25 you had budgeted. And of course, I think you and Saurabh both have mentioned how, technically demanding that mountain is and how much fear you guys went through on your way up and down. And I think when I spoke to Rahul as well, in Ladakh this year, he talked, I think all three of you echoed the rappels down are the most terrifying you've ever done. Just a thought from that perspective, if the weather was ever bad or if the weather had gotten bad, how terrifying and how, exponentially difficult would it have become to either go up or down as well?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think this is something that I was mentioning to Vineet as well, that the weather is such a huge factor on Ama Dablam and visibility as well. That if the weather had turned bad, I feel that with the kind of experience that we have, we would have decided not to even attempt the expedition because that happened this year, in fact. If you remember, when we were helping the Israeli team climb Ama Dablam, there was uh, the cyclonic impact in the entire Himalayas, and the weather window that we got was originally the date was 23rd of October, but we intentionally kept them back to attempt on the 26th of October because the winds, though predicted at only 20 to 25 kilometers per hour, are still strong enough to push you in multiple directions. And therefore, we waited for those winds to come down before we gave them the green light to push for the summit. So, yeah, I think Ama Dablam is the kind of mountain where there's so many things that can go wrong that if you have a foresight that the weather is going to add another level of complication,
Hmm.
I feel that it's better to err on the side of caution. And the great thing about Ama Dablam also is the fact that the height that you're gaining is not so much. So if you push weather your weather window by about a week or so, you can literally come down to one of the villages, rest, and then go back up and try again. In fact, a very close friend of ours, Vikas Dimri, was attempting to climb Ama Dablam in spring of 2025, and because of the winds and because it was coming out of the winter, all the snow patches were completely frozen and there was blue ice on the mountain. And blue ice is so hard that even trying to get purchase with your crampons becomes very difficult. So he had to abandon the expedition. And I thought that took a lot of common sense and maturity to be able to do that. So yeah, Ama Dablam is the kind of mountain where you have to be really, really practical and prepared to turn back, rather than take chances with your life.
Yeah, thought as much. And just one more other question from my side. Uh, you could see Saurabh saying you guys gained like 1,200 meters from base camp to camp one, which by any means is probably not recommended, especially that high. Is there a reason folks kind of have, obviously there's barely any space on that route to put up camps, and even there are no camps, but how hard was that day? Relatively, of course, it's not as technical, but this that much elevation gain in a day is quite a lot as well.
Yeah, actually, though I kind of simplified my narrative by saying that we climbed Ama Dablam in 10 days. You also have to remember that Suraj and I had already spent about a month in the Khumbu Valley, because we were leading groups for base camp treks and we had already climbed up to Labuche Peak that season. So the thing is that we were already well acclimatized. And I think that's a very good question because even though you're saying 6,812 meters and it's not so high considering you're on the Himalayas and you have 8,000-meter peaks, I think acclimatization is a very big factor. I strongly recommend that if somebody is climbing Ama Dablam, that they should come into the Everest Valley earlier, probably trek up to Dingbuche, go climb Island Peak or go climb Labuche Peak, tag 6,200 meters at least, so that they're very well acclimatized before they turn around and come back to base camp. And if they don't want to do that and they just want to focus on Ama Dablam, which is also a good thing to do, especially if you want to conserve your energy, then I think it's important to budget to spend extra days at Ama Dablam base camp so that you can do one or two rotations to camp one, come back down, see whether you can go up to camp two as well, so that by the time you finally push for the summit, um, you're not worried about not having the energy to climb up to 6,800 meters because, as I said, most of that climb is done on vertical rock faces. And because it's so exposed, out of panic, you breathe either too fast or too shallow. So you tend to hyperventilate even then. So yeah, Ama Dablam should only be attempted after a very good acclimatization plan. And that should be independent of the base camp, camp one, camp two summit route.
I had one question in general. Like this
Please.
year, we hear that how, weather has played a bigger role than mountains this year,
Of
is what
course.
we hear, and right? So while in Avadablam, you said the weather maybe the window may be conducive and how everything went fine, right? But
Yeah.
if you had to talk about in general about other expeditions this year, how has that changed the approach for you as a brand or for you as an individual or for you as a mountaineer? How has it changed maybe from other expeditions? How 2025 was?
Yeah, I mean, on that note, 2025 was a really
It's been quite a
very
year though. Yeah.
adventurous,
Yes.
yeah, very adventurous year, not just from the weather perspective. I mean, there's been huge impact in the Himalayas across because of weather, but even the
Mm.
geopolitics has made a huge impact as far as trekking and travel and mountaineering is concerned. With Operation Sindoor happening, Kashmir was put on a complete
Yeah.
standstill. Subsequently, in September, when the revolution took place in Nepal,
Mm.
that definitely did impact the trekking season and the confidence and safety perceived by mountaineers to go into these parts of the world. So yeah, it has been a tough year. It's interesting, but it's one of those things where we kind of build a contingency around it as well. So as Adventure Pulse, not only do we specialize in trekking and mountaineering, but we also do a lot of outdoor development training programs. And the great thing is that with the launch of our book, What's Your Everest in this year, we've been getting a lot of opportunities to not just share our experience about Everest, but also talk to companies, travel to different places. We do a lot of corporate training programs specialized in leadership development, especially when we're dealing with crisis situations.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's good to have a plan B, and I think this year in 2025,
Yep.
our plan B became our plan A.
A.
Yeah. So yeah, we're hoping 2026 will be uh, a little bit more predictable and a little less adventurous as far as the mountains are
I'm
concerned.
hoping that for myself too. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope you've recovered well from your injury, Natasha.
Yes. 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 Much better.
Good,
I can look at
good, good.
something next year. Hopefully.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping you're trading in your physio boot for some mountaineering boots now.
I'm back to the gym.
Fabulous. That's amazing.
Back to the
Great.
gym. Yeah.
So, Sam, on
Okay.
this mountain, there is no rescue possible, right? Anywhere.
No, in fact, there is rescue possible, but usually rescue is as dangerous because a helicopter cannot land at any part of this mountain. So what they do is they do this very specialized technique called a long line rescue, where they drop a rope with rescue specialist who's hanging literally from this rope, and he
Okay.
tries to reach the point where you are, incapacitated, and then that cable is hooked onto you and the rescue operator, and you're lifted off the mountain. So it is very precarious. So it's important to have that mental ability that you have to have your own exit strategy and your own exit plan, and not rely on the fact that the helicopter can be able to pull you out, which is very different from, let's say, even climbing Everest, because Everest, you have some very distinct places where a helicopter can land. It can land in Camp 1, Camp 2. It can even do a long line rescue on the way to Camp 3 as well. So yeah, from a technical perspective and an exposure and a risk perspective, Ama Dablam is a lot scarier. And that's why you have only 500 climbers who've attempted to climb, or who have climbed Ama Dablam. Okay, folks, I think that's about the time that we have. But if you have any more questions, please feel free to put it on the group. We'd love to share our perspective and answers. And in the meantime, Ayush will also paste the YouTube link of the 8K expedition video so that you can actually watch that. I recommend you watch it on HD on your TV because it is brilliant. It is an experience. If you want to only look at the climbing part of it, start looking at it from, I think, 4 minutes or 4 minutes, 3 seconds, because that focuses from base camp to the summit. It's not a very long video, it's about a 10-minute video, but it'll give you a very good perspective of what the climb is, especially now that you have an understanding of what Camp 1 is, what Camp 2 is, and what are some of the features that you see along the way. So yeah, on that note, thanks everybody for joining us on a Saturday afternoon, and have a great weekend.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Samir.
Thanks for
Thanks,
Thank you.
joining.
Thanks for